What's up, everybody? GameStop MILF Pumper here, coming at you with a brand new bound video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the characters with the highest solo impact in every single game, the Duelist, and we're going to be breaking down every single one and giving you their strengths, weaknesses, general, and playstyle tips so that you can master these amazing agents and you know which one is perfect for you so that you can start dominating your games with these. But speaking of domination, the GameLeap website is guaranteed to give you in-depth guides, content, and everything you possibly need to dominate your ranked games. If you want to surpass your limits and climb rank after rank, then do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, the first duelist on our list is the one, the only Jet herself. And starting off with her strengths, Jet is not only the best opper, but because of her dash ability, she can, one, get out of scenarios that many characters cannot get out of, which allows her to get a kill and quickly run away. But two, in some circumstances, she can use her dash aggressively to either take space, which I'm going to talk about in a second, or combo extremely well with an ally, for instance. Now, let's move on to her weaknesses, and compared to the other duelists, her first weakness is she has no flashes, which can be a problem denying enemy LOS, and because of this, she actually has poor sight clear at times, where she's going to be relying a lot on the timing or the mistiming of an enemy team by throwing them off balance with her dash, or she's going to be relying on her gunplay, her actually winning that duel straight up and then getting out, rather than having some sort of catalyst, such as a flash, to actually push that matchup in her favor. Now, as the first general tip that I'm going to give you, you need to understand when your sprays are going to be connecting and when they will not transfer into a kill. At the start of your spray, you should be able to quickly identify if you're going to be able to convert that spray into a kill. You did a whole bunch of damage to a target, maybe you're going to commit to that spray before you dash, but if you typically didn't kill the enemy instantly and you didn't kill them with your first burst, you should be ready to dash instantly, and that's why I typically suggest you make sure that your dash is on a very easy to press button that does not hinder your W, A, S, and D key. Now, as one playstyle tip on Jet that really can differentiate some of the low-level Jets from the high-level Jets is that at the higher levels, Jet will use their dashes to claim space. And what I mean by that is you get to automatically claim all the ground in the space that you dash forward, and you allow your team to push on the point with ease because you can quickly find out where enemies are based on how they interact with you. They're either going to initially try to shoot you, or you're going to be able to see them out of nowhere when enemies are not expecting it. And more often than not, you're going to completely throw them off their timing because they're going to be setting up for some sort of flash play, smoke play, or whatever, and you're going to catch them in the middle of their ability use. An example of using your dash to claim space is, think about playing bind on attack on A side. You could smoke off the right side where enemies could be somewhere around middle boxes, and you could quickly dash to U-haul, and what this does is now any enemies at the backside of point have to be afraid of you wrapping, and if you go and claim U-haul, if there's an enemy there, you could try to duel them, and whether you kill that enemy or there's no enemy there, now the enemy team has to be afraid of that angle, which forces them to back up, guard multiple angles, and just have less point pressure, which allows your team to rush onto point safely, and you gained all this information and space just by using your dash aggressively, and it's a very powerful way to do so. Now, moving on to the next duelist that we got to talk about in Valorant, we have Reyna. First off, with her strengths, she does have a form of sustain, which means she can heal herself. Basically, she's very good at retaking because of this, because she can keep herself at a full fighting force. She has team flashes, and what I mean by that is her flashes don't hurt her teammates. So while they don't have the best of range and they can be destroyed, she can actually rush a point using her flashes with her team, and the entire team can rush with them, which is a really good thing about her flashes. And the last strength that Reyna has is momentum. Unlike a lot of characters that need to slow down because they run out of abilities, Reyna can keep going and going and going, and a lot of times kills are a domino effect where you get a kill and you get exactly what you need, either a reposition or more sustain, and that allows you to keep going on and on and on, basically cleaning up the enemy. And because the health regen and her ultimate are on a fixed time, her kit actually encourages you to keep up that momentum. Now, as far as Reyna's weaknesses, first off, she has no post-plant utility, so a lot of times you want to be playing aggressive post-plant, and that means after you get that plant down, if you have some sort of overheal, typically you want to utilize that by aggressively taking more and more duels before the enemy team sets up. You don't want to be caught in a scenario where you have to recontest spike without any utility, because unlike a lot of characters, you don't have anything that can contest the spike very easily. And then the second weakness to Reyna is she's probably the most aim dependent out of all the duelists. She is very live or die by the kills she gets because she cannot access the majority of her kit without getting kills. So unlike a lot of the other characters that can use their abilities to help them get value, Reyna needs her aim to help her get value out of her abilities. It's like the other way around, and that's just really important for you to understand. Now moving on to the first playstyle tip, and this is something that you can only do when you're confident in your aim, but if you are, this can be so damn powerful. And this is when you hold an off angle that no other character can hold. And what I mean by that is, unlike areas that are near natural cover that give you a chance to fight the enemy and then run away to cover, which is where the majority of players are going to hide behind. And because of that, because these positions are powerful, that's where most enemy players are going to pre-aim with good crosshair placement, because these are just likely angles that you would be holding because they're good angles where you could get a kill and then you could run away. But unlike all those other characters, Reyna can hold in the most obscure angles possible. This means doing something like on defense on specifically Haven, she could push out mid, and instead of standing near a wall, she could stand right in the middle of mid doors or even up further away from any sort of natural cover. Now the only reason she could do this is when she gets a kill, she could still get out with her dismiss ability, not just in one direction like Jet, but she can actually turn the corner with her dismiss ability. Now, this does require you to get the kill on the enemy, of course, which might not be the easiest thing in the world, but on the plus side for you, the enemy will never have their crosshair placement at the appropriate place where Reyna is. This means that your crosshair placement, like in that scenario, when you're challenging mid-window, will always be around where they're going to appear from, while their crosshair placement would most likely be in many different spots, which does give you an automatic advantage. And if you can convert that automatic advantage into a kill, then you can get a free kill, get out using the power of off angles, and you can do this all over the place in many different scenarios. Now moving on to the next character we have on the list, we have none other than Phoenix. And kicking it off with his strengths, he has great sight control, flashes that play incredibly well around smoke. In fact, they are actually amplified by smoke because you can hide the tail of the flash. And he does have not only sustain, which means he can heal himself up, but he has LOS denial in his flame wall. Basically, he's a jack of all trades that does everything that a primary duelist should do. He is like what you would think of when you think of a duelist and someone that doesn't bait at all. That is Phoenix. Now let's move on to the weaknesses of Phoenix, and there aren't that many big weaknesses of Phoenix. He's pretty well rounded, but the one weakness, if you compare him to the other duelists, specifically Jet or Reyna, is that he has no outs for a all-in play style. Basically, what this means for Phoenix is positionally, you need to be playing far safer than a lot of these other duelists because you don't have a get out of jail free card. You don't have any room for error if you get caught out in the middle of the open, or if you fail to actually connect on your counter strafing and your shots when you flash an enemy. This means that Phoenix is going to be tethered a lot more to natural cover, and he's going to want to slither around natural cover like a snake rather than running into open space like Jet and Reyna can do a lot more. That's just something that's really important for you to understand for those of you who want to master this agent. Now, talking about the one general tip that we have for Phoenix, a lot of times people just want to top off with Phoenix's abilities, but most of the time, this is what high ranked players will be doing. They'll actually use his abilities to get an actual strategic gunplay advantage rather than using it just to heal. Denying the enemy from defusing or swinging a corner with his molly, or using the LOS blocking flame wall to force the enemy to push out of the flame wall to maybe stop you from defusing, or they don't know if you're sticking it or not. These are things that can win you the entire round, and a lot of times just adding a tiny bit of heals on top of that is not actually worth the value that these abilities would bring. So definitely think twice before you burn all your abilities right off the bat, just getting yourself a little bit more sustain. Now moving on to the one playstyle tip that we got for you on Phoenix, basically you need a Leroy Jenkins this hoe. And what I mean by that is you need to be pushing W on Phoenix. Phoenix is all about space control. Remember that space concept that we talked about before? Phoenix is absolutely amazing at securing it. You run onto site, you flash one corner, you turn, you clear it, you push up to the next area on the point, you flash it, you turn it, and you just keep doing that until you take the entire site control over and you secure safety for your team, getting kills in the process. Well, there are going to be some different situations for some of the other duelists. It is undoubtable in my mind that Phoenix needs to always be the first one in. An Alpha King Phoenix is a good Phoenix, and you should never ever be baiting on Phoenix, period. And if you want to be going in first, going in aggressively, getting tons of kills, and you're a little bit brain damaged, then Phoenix might be the perfect agent for you. Now, I'm joking about the brain damage part. I love a good Phoenix on my team. Now, moving on to the next duelist that we got for you on the list, we have Raze. Now, Raze's first strengths is she's very good at space denial and space creation, and she does have mobility slapped on top of that. So what I mean by space denial and creation is denying enemies from rushing. That is a denial of them creating space. And space creation is using her abilities like using all of her boom bots and her grenade to force enemies out of a location so her and her team can push into that location. That is thus creating that space for your team. Now, Raze can do this purely with abilities, and that's one of the reasons why she's so strong. But then the weakness of Raze is, one, she has no sustain, so she can't heal herself in any way, and she doesn't really have an amazing out. She can use her blast packs, which is really good, but she doesn't have a get out of jail free card like Jet or Raze, and she doesn't have any LOS blocking abilities like Phoenix or Jet, so traveling from one open space to the next can be sometimes difficult for her. And of course, Raze in general is going to play poorly in open space. And what I mean by that is a lot of times her abilities want to have a central target. She wants to be pushing forward and taking the areas. She doesn't want to be playing in the middle of the open. And a lot of times she doesn't thrive well when she is fighting enemies that come from multiple directions. So that's just something that you should understand about the character. Now, moving on to the first general tip that we have about Raze. Often a game will be played, especially when you're on defense on Raze, based on baiting out your utility because it's so damn strong. You need to be hyper aware of how enemies are playing around your utility, because more often than not, if you stopped even one rush with your utility, they're going to actually put enough time in default to bait out your utility, and then they're gonna rotate off. Sometimes it's far better to slow roll, make the enemy use a drone, make the enemy use a flash and a couple smokes, and then use your utility. Don't let them bait it out for free, and if they are gonna rotate off, make it actually cost the enemy a lot of utility in return to get your utility out of you. Now, moving on to a playstyle tip for Raze. Typically, Raze wants to be contesting the most powerful areas on the map, and she wants to be contesting on attack the most difficult and powerful areas to hold on attack. Let's talk about her best map split for an example. Almost all the time, Raze should be holding mid, and the reason for that is mid is the center point for all the rotations on the map, and it is an incredibly powerful place to not only hold, but take, and Raze's kit works perfectly here. She can use her abilities to potentially stop a rush and really gum up that center section where enemies are going to take a lot of damage. A lot of times they're not going to be able to push very easily, and even if they do, there's going to be casualties. And Raze also has the ability to take that space. She can throw a paint shells into vents. She can use her boombot up heaven. And these are things that can clear out this area and allow her team to take that really precious resource. And that is one of the benefits of Raze. She doesn't need gunplay to get all this value automatically, and that's what makes her so unique and so powerful as a duelist in general. Now, moving on to the last agent that we got for you on the list, we have Yoru. Now, let's talk about his strengths first. He's a super lurker. He probably lurks better than any character in the game, and he does have an out ability with flashes, and he is rather good versus a posted up enemy, meaning that he can sneak around an enemy holding an LOS, get into an angle that enemies don't expect, and these are all definitely big pluses to Yoru. Now, his weaknesses basically come from the fact that his abilities are not the most effective because they might be a little bit too loud. High-level players often will not fall for the baited sound, and low-level players often don't know the bait is happening. So there are some parts of Yoru's kit that are just lacking right now, unfortunately. Now, does that mean Yoru's a bad character? No, it doesn't if you play him correctly. Now, to help you do this, let's talk about our first general tip. You don't need to get very crafty with the teleport all the time. And you see this very, very often where Yorus want to send their teleport behind enemy lines, combo with the flash, do some crazy flash in play where they get behind the entire team and kill everybody. Yeah, that might have worked in the first week, but more often than not, it's going to work less and less now. But the thing is, you can use it as a simple out ability and it's still very good. getting a kill and getting out is still amazing. And that allows you to go on these semi-lurks that let you get value and then get out before you can get refragged, which in and itself is still just really, really good. And I think that that's just underrated and one of the best ways to just use the teleport in general. Now, moving on to the big playstyle that we got for you on Yoru. He's a great character to apply pressure on one side of the map while your teammates plan to rush another, and then he can wrap for a flank. Because of the combination of footsteps, his ability to sneak up certain angles, and really trick a lot of the enemy sentinels' utilities, specifically the Killjoy utility, can be really easily tricked out with Yoru, considering a lot of the times a Killjoy will have a setup that is based on an alarm bot or a turret actually targeting an enemy, and then they will trigger their nanoswarm. But if it targets your feet, they'll trigger the nanoswarm and it won't actually kill anyone, which is really, really good. And it can allow you to bait out a lot of that utility and then just force enemies to respect that angle. And if they don't, you're going to end up in an angle that enemies just don't expect, and you're going to be able to get some free kills. But don't get too greedy. After you get that, get back to your team, and you're going to be able to clutch up the round with ease based on numbers advantage. But speaking of advantage, the GameLeap website gives you the best possible competitive advantage you could ask for, with in-depth advanced guides, VOD reviews, tips and tricks. We got everything you need on the GameLeap website, so do yourself a favor, go check it out in the links down below. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Follow me at CoachMillsOW on Twitter. Stonks only go up, and I'll see you tomorrow.